Thank you for joining our webinar today. We'll be focused on sharing how you can leverage Microsoft Project Management and Office 365 technologies to plan more successfully and deliver programs in your enterprise. My name is Annie Levand, and I'm with a Microsoft Gold partner called PROJILITY. We've been implementing Microsoft project and portfolio management solutions for over 17 years for large enterprises, including everything from engineering, construction, IT, and new product development. PMOs and CIOs typically come to us when they can't easily explain what's going on across all their projects. They don't know what resources are working on what work, and they have a hard time getting consistent reports, metrics, and dashboards to make project-based decisions. We're known for having a 98% on-time, on-budget track record for successfully implementing these solutions for clients. We offer services and solutions in 3 core areas: deployment and consulting services, PROJILITY's core business. We provide professional services for successfully planning and implementing Microsoft Project Portfolio Management, including Microsoft Project Online, integrating PPM with a line of business applications, and delivering strategic portfolio management solutions to support top-level management planning. We also have a growing Microsoft Power Platform practice where we are actively working with clients to build applications, workflows, and reports to automate their most important business processes. PROJILITY also offers a set of pre-built software solutions and accelerators based upon 17 years of experience, including a set of Hammerhead products that provide improved access to your cloud PPM data, accelerate access to visual reports and dashboards using Power BI, connect data between your PPM system with Microsoft Teams, and extend connectivity to Active Directory to improve visibility, insight, and control over your work, people, and projects. Finally, PROJILITY provides post-implementation support services, including expert care, designed to assist your PMO with gaining on-demand expertise on the solution supported. We have a full online automated e-learning offering that can improve consistency and adoption for your users of the Microsoft management tools. We do have an upcoming webinar covering deep dive into Microsoft Power Platform. You won't want to miss it. All webinars will start at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can register for one or multiple events through the Eventbrite link provided or by searching Eventbrite PROJILITY in your browser. Hope you can join us for these sessions, which were designed based upon your feedback over the last 6 months. If you missed the PROJILITY second annual Fall Virtual Project Conference in October, you can now catch it online. It's broken into 3 speaking sessions from Abercrombie & Fitch, the state of Indiana, and Microsoft, sharing insight and best practices into use and adoption of project management and PPM solutions. You can visit the link here, which takes you to the YouTube playlist with these videos posted. All videos from this and previous series are available on the best practice playlist on YouTube listed on this page. Topics range from managing your digital transformation program using PPM technologies to integrating PPM with a line of business applications. Feel free to subscribe and access this library at any time and share with your colleagues. If you have any questions as you watch the presentation, please log them in the questions and answer manager at the top of your screen. We'll review those towards the end of our session. With that, I'll hand the presentation off to Rob Hirschman, partner here at PROJILITY. Rob, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Annie, and thanks everyone for joining us for our session today. We're going to be focused on program management, not detailed project management, going through a little bit of definition and background in terms of how programs differ from projects, what the program management role is, and again, how that differs from project managers. Talk about some of the challenges we're seeing in a program management perspective and some of the benefits of going down that road, and then lay out some of the technology options Microsoft provides. There's lots of ways to skin this one, so we're going to show you some examples, walk you through some good practices, some demonstrations of some software, and how some of the clients we work with actually organize their programs successfully. We'll finally walk you through a case study and talk through what some next steps for getting help if you are looking to do successful program management in the Microsoft suite look like. As well as Annie mentioned, if you want to ask any questions, you can log them in the Q&A manager. So let's back up, start and talk about what is a program. A program is a grouping of projects and interrelated activities that's undertaken with a goal in mind. There are a set of business objectives that are predefined, and we're looking to get some kind of business benefit or value from this investment. It has to be something that's fairly strategic to the organization to spin up a program. A lot of people confuse the term project and program, and they call it a program when it's a project. And a program is a very unique entity in our world. The purpose is really to deliver something that adds value, that aligns with the organizational strategy. There's some goals here, such as we really want to become a Fortune 500 company in 5 years. We're going to spin up a program to make sure we have the right technology to do that. Maybe we want to reduce company costs by a certain percentage over the next couple of years. Again, it's not one project, it's a series of interrelated activities that have an end goal in mind. Or maybe we want to deliver healthcare services to a percentage of the uninsured population by a certain year. Again, this can be something that is public sector and government, or it can be something that's in industry programs. Whereas projects are designed really to deliver discrete work products. We want to have an end deliverable. It is this thing we're delivering. The program is really designed to deliver the outcome. So it's a very different focus when we think about it. And from a program management perspective, what we want to do is we want to be able to plan and manage the interrelated activities and projects and have surveillance over them across information such as schedules, overall performance, the intake mechanism, so we have consistent requests coming in, the portfolio program summary, how work is performed, program level risks and issues, program level financials and resources. It's done at a much higher level than we have detailed projects, but we do need the detailed projects, which are going to be part of the overall program. And if you look at the diagram on the bottom, on the top, we have a project which has defined start and end dates. It's delivering specific work products, and it's micro, right? In and of itself, it is delivering a series of things where you have another project doing that, another project, another project. They're all part of a program. But that program is really the collection of these projects and interrelated activities, which is designed to drive some operational change. So every project should have a business outcome related to the program. It should be well aligned towards that. Programs are really the macro view of all the interrelated work projects within it. And then we've got the unique projects that deliver on elements of that program. So programs are fundamentally different. And what is program management in general? It is really the business process related to managing these work efforts, budgets, and initiatives in very defined ways. On the top left, you'll see we have a goal of having some kind of a positive business impact or improvement to organizational performance. Again, improving throughput, reducing costs, becoming a larger company, delivering some service to our constituents. It has a very distinct set of business goals on the right. It's going to involve multiple projects, activities. It could have different technologies. It could have different resources. It may have different funding sources. It may have external parties and partners involved in it. And finally, it may require an organization of its own. A lot of programs are large enough where a company will spin up a whole group or department just to manage and deliver on that program. It could be transformation from a retailer to an R&D provider. I want to take some of my products I have and commercialize them and then go into a whole new business line. Well, that's really a program. It's not just a project, and there's a series of projects within it. Some examples of a program, the Census 2030 is a major government program that's spun up, that's planned, so that when 2030 hits, the government will be ready to send out all the census forms, and you will be getting those in the mail, and you can respond to those, and then they can run the data on that. Medicare is another program, and Medicare rolls out a program specifically to change the billing for physicians. There are a series of hundreds of projects related to that program. A hotel chain decides it's going to fund a program maybe to update its reservation system, which is going to go across multiple brands and multiple owners of different hotels that they have if they franchise them out. And that's a large program that has many touch points, many different technologies, many resources involved. A large company like Boeing may win a contract, which you probably read about in the newspaper, to deliver next-gen warfighters to the Pentagon. That's a major program. And finally, in your organization, you may decide to take on a digital transformation program. We're really going to go forward and become a much more digital business from an organizational perspective. That's going to be a program you're going to start up. So this gives you an idea as to programs and really the different size and scale that they are. What's different from a project? Well, on the left, you'll see programs or program management could be permanent. We may not have an end date. Whereas projects on the right, it's a temporary effort. We know this project is going to be 6 months in duration, and at the end of that, we get a form deliverable. Program, not so much. We may have projects coming and going throughout that until we realize our business goals. They may not be time bound. Again, it may not have a specific time frame around it, whereas we have specific time frames on the right. Outputs can definitely vary based on the different outcomes we're looking for. It may not be a thing in a certain way. It may be a business contribution versus a specific outcome on the right. We may not have, again, those discrete dates for deliverables, but we definitely want to have expectations on the roadmap. And on the left, we can create a very positive outcome. Not that projects can't do that, but generally we're producing something that may or may not create an outcome at the end of the day. So, programs are really designed to reduce the cost and risk through a very large investment, a multi-year investment, whereas a project is a single defined effort with an output related goal. And so we can think of these as different entities, but they are related. And how they become related is if we start looking at the data. Now, Standish Group did a survey, this was about 9 or 10 years ago, of 2,500 people. And these people were all involved in programs and projects. And what they found on the left is most of the large-scale transformation programs were not succeeding. And why they weren't succeeding had to do mainly with one of two things. The first of those, in the 36%, poor organization and project management practices. The execution level stuff just wasn't getting organized and done in a consistent way. And that's, if you look at that, that's over a third of why projects and major programs fail. We can see down at the bottom, they had poorly defined or missing objectives. They had people working on the program that maybe weren't very well aligned with the program goals. Maybe they didn't have the right technology or they didn't have the right resources to be successful. And the third one is ineffective project planning aligned with not having the right resources. All these things talk to why programs at a higher level fail. And a lot of it gets back to just basic blocking and tackling, having a good mechanism for planning and measuring your progress and your success. We look at the large program success rate on the right, over half of them underperform. And we can see that many of them are canceled in the long term, 31%, and only 16% are successful. So you can see that it's really challenging to do program management because of all the different components that are a part of it. So we start asking, how can we be more successful with program management? Are there specific technologies that we can put in place to help centralize the data, automate it, and track the progress and goals, which is something we're going to get to next. We also start thinking about the different roles. On the left, we have the program manager who really takes a big picture view of the world. And he or she is going to think, what's best for the program? What kind of results do we need to track? It could have multiple project managers rolling up as direct reports. So the program in and of itself could have its own program office, almost like a PMO that has multiple project managers that has its own resources or shared resources. Program is also going to have its own budget and it's going to have its own outcomes and it's going to be responsible for delivering performance to some kind of a client, whether it's an internal or external organization. Interestingly, a program manager may not know that much about the actual subject matter because it's such a broad swath. They may not be an expert in whatever they're trying to do transformation, but they may be an expert in business transformation, or they may be an expert in getting results on a program, and they've got all the people delivering below them. Additionally, project managers on the right very rarely have direct interaction with senior executives like a CEO, unless it's a major project. Program managers do all the time. They may have a weekly stand-up where they go through all the details on the program, the status, the risks, the issues, any of the key action items, any of the problems and the funding on that, versus a project manager is really reporting to a PMO or a business head in some way. We think about the different roles and what the differences are between them. And overall, to get a program going, there are really different components, very different than a project. We've got program level governance, who's going to be running the show, what does the process look like? We've got to have business alignment, because often we're touching different parts of the organization. We've got to have some level of quality assurance in QA that's going through and actually making sure we're actually getting the results and there's quality behind the product. You've got all the components at the bottom, obviously the management team, the level of integration between the technologies and the people, the financials have to line up. You have to have proper infrastructure to support it on the digital side. Planning has to be in place, and also ways to track and measure improvements in goals and metrics. So we start looking at, how can the Microsoft suite be set up really to support good program planning, tracking, and management? Well, it's not going to replace your governance. It's not going to replace your people, but some of the technologies can really be leveraged to better organize the information. And one of the challenges is having a distributed workforce. We find that in a program, they're often global. They're involving people from multiple divisions or departments. We need to have web-based solutions that people can access from anywhere in the world, no matter what their bandwidth is. That's really important. We need ways to coordinate and track different types of work. Those can be very complex projects with tens of thousands of tasks. They could be simple projects that have 50 tasks or 5 tasks. They could be business projects or technical projects. So a lot of times it's not just going to be one tool solves the problem. It may be multiple tools and an aggregation of that information on a reporting layer. You also need to be able to manage and view interdependencies across the work. This is really, really important, because if we find that 2 projects are reliant on 3 other projects within the program, you need to be able to report on that so the people that own the 2 know about the status of the 3, and it can be bubbled up if some of those start to push out. Understanding those critical touch points is really, really important, and having a mechanism for tracking interdependencies is really huge. You have to have some mechanism of integrated project scheduling, and that's the ability for each of the project leads to build their work plans, track their work, track their progress, and status report on that in a fairly consistent way. If you let each of them do their own thing, you're not going to get consistent scheduling and consistent status reporting. That's going to be a pretty big challenge. You have to have at a program level some kind of resource alignment. And we're not talking full demand management, resource management like you'd have in a PMO. It's just alignment on what resources are available to perform what work and what percentage of their time they're allocating to the program versus other activities they have. Understanding this, documenting this, and getting agreement on resource alignment is really important. So if you don't have the resources, you can't deliver on the projects, you can't deliver on the program. Additionally, you have to be able to have a mechanism for tracking the financials on the program. This is typically not your ERP system. It's typically not the detailed schedule. You have to have some kind of program level financials mechanism for tracking what are you spending and what is the actual investment in that. Finally, we have to get to program level metrics and potential results. It's not just about the individual projects. It's about aggregating that to a program level and seeing here's our spend, but here's actually the value we're providing. And then at the end of the day, having some kind of management dashboards, something that provides executives with that visibility, the touch points into status, health, and risk so they can see what's going on. So with all of this in mind, what technologies can we leverage? Well, on a program, Microsoft provides a lot of great technologies you can start to leverage. One of those is Microsoft Project Online, Microsoft's traditional PPM application, which is based on a SharePoint foundation. Project Online can help you do program level aggregations. For your medium to large size schedules with interdependencies, it's really, really good at that. And a lot of big organizations we work with use it for that. Also, it helps you with project and program metadata and linking these into things like issues and risks and action items and key documentation. So Project Online could be an engine for the PPM components of this. We're also seeing an emergence of use of Project for the Web, which is Microsoft's lighter touch web-based tool for your kind of non-traditional PMs. So you may have some folks in finance or operations or HR that are running projects within your program. Maybe giving them Project Online or Project Professional on their desktop is too much for them. They're not trained in it. So you can give them a lighter weight project so they can plan and manage their work at the level of detail you want. And also, because this is built on the Microsoft Power Platform, it opens the door for program level data and tracking. It's sitting on a database called the Dataverse, which means we can expand that out and build solutions on that if we want to. And really looking forward, that Power Platform is really the platform of the future for Microsoft for any kind of unique application development. We can start to use Planner, and most folks are familiar with Planner, visual Kanban task management, to track action items and tasks across projects and the program as a whole. It's really good at doing things like that, follow-ups to meetings, making sure things are getting done. We can also start to incorporate Microsoft Teams, which is typically going to be the collaboration and communication platform everybody on the program is using. Today, you use it for meeting coordination, instant messaging, live meeting, live messaging, and also it can be used to provide visibility across the program for management. You don't have to worry about having them go to a website and click a button and look at a report. You can view all that through Microsoft Teams, and that's something we're going to show you next. SharePoint is still a very core part of the solution stack. From a SharePoint Online perspective, we see a lot of people want to centralize their documents and do document management to track things like issues and risks. It has integrated OneNote in it, so all of the meeting notes and action items are all captured and stored. So if somebody leaves your organization, all the data is there. You can start to capture emails. So when emails are coming across the program or in the projects, you can log those in SharePoint and index them over time. So again, from an audit and just a transition perspective, it makes it a lot easier. And it can also support some of your project request and intake within your program. And Power BI. Power BI is really the analytics tool that most organizations or program offices use to deliver program dashboards, to get project status and interdependency tracking, to get paginated reporting, to get visibility for different audiences when they need it, instead of having to send them a bunch of schedules or create massive PowerPoints, which take a lot of time and end up being late. So think of these as kind of the core platform that you're going to have from an operational perspective across your program. It's going to be structured in different ways based off the type of program and your experience, the level of detail you're tracking. And if we are doing any kind of development work on a program, that's where a tool like Azure DevOps comes in. It's a great tool for your development, your developer collaboration and code management. It can be used to progress track any of the agile activities you have. And also it's a code and test repository. So if your program does include development, think of using Azure DevOps and then integrating that data in. It's all available there for reporting. And finally, for a lot of organizations that are doing really large programs that go over multiple years, there's going to be a lot of data there. And that data needs to be aggregated somehow. And Power BI is a really great reporting tool. It is not a data mart or a data warehouse. So what a lot of our clients do is they actually set up SQL Server and SQL Azure data warehouses to support this data. It can help you structure storage of your data at a program level. It can support integration with other data, maybe your financial system, your HR system, because integration is a key part of any kind of large program. Pull that data in, and it can also live, as we say, under Power BI. Power BI could be the reporting tool. Your SQL data warehouse behind the scenes could actually be the data storage mechanism for all the information. So again, if your program needs a scalable reporting infrastructure, think about going the road of having a formal database behind it, and that way you have a lot more flexibility. So let's get in and let's show you some of these technologies, show you how they work. We're going to get into Office 365. Everything here is within the 365 suite. First thing we're going to start with is intake. One of the key parts that often gets overlooked in a large program is getting new requests for work in. You're always going to have new projects that are being spun up under the program. Having a formal mechanism for doing that is really important. So one of the things we can do is actually have a central projects queue or an idea queue where people can come in and log information and say, I've got a new idea. This can be in a SharePoint list that anybody in the organization or anybody within the program can access. Update database. So we can actually capture other information. What is this project going to cost us? But the benefits we're going to see are about 45,000. What is the criticality as it relates to the importance of delivering the program? What is the business alignment to the program? What areas of the business does it impact? Manufacturing or procurement or design or supply chain? What's the status of it? If you're doing any kind of product management, you can actually start to map it over into different products. If you support multiple manufacturers, maybe you want to do that in terms of a program you have supporting different manufacturing elements. Maybe what kind of an idea is it? Software, construction, HR, and is it a product segment? So what you can do is you can submit this and have a central idea queue. And then you can have different views of this. So you can take a view of different subsets of this and look at it in different ways. You can modify this view, you can create a quick view, you can go in and have a full integrated list of all of the requests that are coming in into your group or organization. And then you can go in and actually look at this or be alerted when somebody adds a new idea, and you can start to sort that or slice and dice that in some way. So the idea list is a really great way to be the funnel for becoming potential projects in your system. And because it's in SharePoint and project, we can now report on it. So we could have, here's an example report we have of all of our on deck projects. These are all the projects that are coming in that are being requested right now in different stage gates. So I can see everything that's in initiation, that's in selection, that's maybe in business case approval in each of the programs I have, the billing program, the initiatives program, the new products program, the enhancements program, and I can see exactly who owns them and what's the information on those requests, and even filter down to show me everything that's in initiation right now versus formal selection. I can have workflows behind these requests as well. So think of it as a way to capture new ideas and intake in a consistent way versus people just spinning up projects. The next part of this is we actually want to get in and start looking at our portfolio. So we're going to be able to get, here is where Project Online makes a lot of sense. We're going to go into Project Online now, or PWA as it's called. We're going to go to the Project Center, and now we're going to be able to get a view of all of the organizational programs we have going on right now. You can see we have programs down here at the bottom, like the Cloud Migration Program or the Server Upgrade Program. These are programs with multiple initiatives and projects within them that may or may not have started yet. And what we can start looking at is, okay, within the Cloud Migration, I've got 11 or 12 projects. Some of these are agile projects. You can see from a methodology perspective, some of them are waterfall. To the left, we can start to see any deliverables or documents, any issues or risks that are tracked, and then we can start to look at the portfolio as a whole. We can also start to track information about projects within the program. So maybe we want to go into just the transformation program at this point. I'm going to come down here to a view we have. Now we're in just one program we have. So now if I am the program manager of the transformation program, I can see all of the key projects and how they're performing. And then I can see each project as it relates to different organizational pillars. So maybe within the program, we've got some goals of cost savings, IT realignment, data security, improving the user experience, and big data aggregation. We can start to organize our projects against those pillars and start to roll that up. And now we can see information, not only things like start and finish dates, we can see, how are we doing on a risk perspective on each of these projects? Are we realizing any ROI? We may be really early on in the life cycle, we're not getting ROI. What's the all project health? But then information such as the cost. So I can see on this AV project down at the bottom, we're spending 360,000. We've spent already 147. We've got a remaining cost of 200,000. And then we can start to see information such as how much new revenue are we going to be generating from this project? And what's the overall revenue impact? So we can see, already in this program, we're going to be generating over $1.2 million in new revenue or cost reduction here. We can look at any information about the projects within the program. Is it a development project that's in at DevOps? What is the percent complete over in DevOps versus what we're tracking in project? Why are we doing the project? Other information such as the department or the division. So it gives us a top level view into the program and any of the interrelated projects within it. And if we want to see that more on a program dashboard, again, we can go to Power BI. Again, this is a set of dashboards and reports. Now we see a program dashboard, and we can see all of the programs we have going on across the organization. And at this point, we may want to filter on just one of those. Again, let's go to the cloud migration program, where we have 11 projects. And you can see here, we've got a request for a project that's come in, and then we've got 10 other projects that are active, or 17 right now. We can start to look at them all and start to see the health and the status. We can see the cost information, which may be captured in the system or may be coming from your financial application. Over here on the right, we can see the financials. So our forecasted cost is $2 million for the program. Right now, our baseline was 0.88. So we're actually way over that from a forecast, but we've already spent about 0.12 million. So we're already forecasting an overrun of over $1 million, probably a bad thing. Down here, we can see any key milestones across the program. So as we kind of hover over each of the tasks, we can see information about those. Then we can drill into them if we want to. So a manager can very quickly see if a task is late, why is it late, and what are the details on that. And you can see we have other program information. We have a program timeline. So we can see for the specific program, here are all the projects related to it. We may want to have those financials in a very discrete report. It's important that we track program financials. So we can then say, well, let's look at our cloud migration program again. Let's click on that guy. And now we can see what our spend is, our baseline and our actual and our forecast, and what's the month-to-month burn based off our current forecast for spend right now. You can see at the top, we have 11 projects, the budget, the estimate, the actuals, and what the variance is today. So a manager can very quickly get an assessment of what's going right and wrong on a program, and then start to drill into specific projects. But also, interestingly, as project managers or program managers are starting to capture risks and issues, we can capture those at a program level. Now we can say for that cloud migration program, we have some pretty big risks. And let's look at the ones that are in the category 3 here, which are our major risks. Now we can see there is one. It is a $100,000 risk with a 70% chance of occurring, 80% chance of occurring, with a very high impact to the organization. I want to make sure this is getting managed, because this could have a definite big impact to my program and what we're spending on it. The ability to kind of cull this out of your project management system is really a big benefit of the Microsoft platform. And finally, we can look at the issues at a program level. These are problems, right? We're beyond the risk. Now we've got a problem. Let's look at that cloud migration program again, and let's look at some of the category 3 issues we have. Now we can drill down to exactly what the issue is, what the date is, has it been resolved, who owns that, so you know who you need to pick up the phone and call. You know where the problems on the project or across the program are. And that really gives you an example of some of the program reporting that's there. So really nice functions and features that are built in between Project Online and Microsoft and Power BI. So once we have our projects all in one place, we can actually start to do detailed scheduling. This is where we're going to go in, and let's go into back to our program view here. Go into view 4. And we're going to get into our transformation program, which we have down here, cloud program. And now we're going to be able to look at details on each project. So you may have your traditional waterfall projects, which have detailed work plans and schedules, which are managed by your PM. So the project manager for this particular project is going to be building out the work plan, publishing that into the system. They're also going to be able to do resource assignments and keep status of the tasks up to date. Team members can come in and provide their updates on the tasks they're assigned to here. But as a manager, you really may not care about the details. You may just care about the milestones. Again, we can get a nice high-level view of all the key milestones on this project to start to see where things go off the rails. And as project managers start to log issues and risks, those will show up against specific milestones. So I can now see what's the risk against developing the functional specs that's on a really big, important project we have. We're going to be able to capture these timelines. We're also going to be able to go in and start to look at non-waterfall projects here too. So within that pipeline again, go back down to our cloud program at the bottom. We're going to have our agile projects here too. From an agile project perspective, what we're trying to do is not capture the same level of detail. We don't need all the detail of a waterfall project because the work is being performed in a different way, in a DevOps tool. But at an agile perspective, what we want to do is we want to be able to summarize the work really at a feature or an epic level. So we have very high level schedules here so that we can get progress. We can start looking at start and end dates, earliest sprint date, latest sprint finish. We can look at resources, so we can do resource planning, and we can look at estimated level of effort here and how long things are going to take, and are we on track from a cost and people perspective. And it allows us to track agile projects and waterfall projects from a program management perspective, even though the work is maybe happening somewhere else. And it just takes a couple of minutes to keep this up to date every week while we're going in and the team members are working in Azure DevOps or Project for the Web, whatever tool they're using. You can update it here and then it all rolls up to your portfolio. So really a nice way to think of aggregating this information. Again, if we're in our portfolio, we wanted to get a report, a status report on a project. Now we can drill down from that program level into a unique project. Now we don't have to wait for each project manager to produce their PowerPoint. The data is all live. So you can simply go in, select the project you want to report on. In this case, we're looking at the health assessment project, but we can pivot on that. We can run a report on a different one. So maybe we want to run it on a different project we have, maybe the audio-visual project. I'm just going to pick that one here. Then we can run a status report, an on-demand status report, just on that project. And then we have all the information on that project here. Okay. And we can walk down through the task status on the project. Now we can see what are the tasks that are finishing late and how late are they and how far along are they. Then I can hover over and get more information about exactly who is responsible for that task. Who's responsible for design completion or finalizing the architecture drawings. Down here, I can see the completed tasks on the project, drill into those. So it gives me a nice visual on this. I can start to see who's on the project team. How many hours are they spending on the project? And then additionally, I get to see what are the risks and issues on the project, as well as the overall project burn down if I've got that. So it really gives me a lot of flexibility to go in there, to pull up a status report and get an update on a specific project whenever I need it. Just going to clear this out here. So now we can get detailed status reports on projects. Okay. We're tracking risks and issues. We could also be tracking financials, and there are different mechanisms for doing that on projects. It really depends on your methodology there. So we can go into the projects we have again, and we may be tracking financials in our project management tool. Down to the cloud project again. Look at the financials element. Or we can be tracking our financials in a financial management system like an ERP system. But in this case, if I go into the health assessment project, you have the ability to build an app, and that app could help you track your financials. We have a lot of organizations that are doing this in Power Apps now. They can do them in SharePoint, you can do them in Power Apps. You really have an option to do either one if you want. Okay. And you'll see come up on the screen here, you have the ability to have financials where you're capturing at a project level, the CapEx and OpEx, or this can be generated by the actual underlying resources that are working on the project. Okay. And finally, we have the ability to do resource planning. So again, we're not trying to do this at a detail level. We're trying to say, okay, well, for the cloud migration program, let's take a look at all the engineers I have working on the program. And let's go and look at their workload and their capacity to make sure they're not overbooked. So what we can do is, again, we can use Project Online to do resource forecasting and start looking across the portfolio and say, okay, well, these are all the people that are working on my engineering projects in the program. Let's take a look at their availability. I see Alex doesn't have any work right now. He must be off doing something else. I can see Erwin has working on some maintenance work, and then he's picking up work on that reporting tool. I can see Josh has certain hours. Michael is overbooked because he's doing maintenance work and a pre-construction survey on one of the projects we have going on. So we get a full look not only into that, but here's all the demand. For all the requested projects in the queue, here's how many hours I'm going to need, and here's what my overall availability is. So I can actually start to forecast out, here's current workload, here's demand for new work within the program for the resources I have, and that's where it puts me from an overall utilization perspective. I can start to do resource forecasting in the tool too. And again, down at that program level, if I just go to my resource dashboard, Power BI, I can start looking at it, and I can say, okay, just show me for my engineers. Just show me product engineers and see what my workload versus my capacity is just for that role. So you can start to actually really do good planning and resource planning. So you can go back to management and say, hey, we've actually got a problem right now. I've got capacity in the orange line, but in the month of, you can see here, March and April, it looks like I'm going to be at that capacity from a demand perspective, and I have negative availability. So I'm going to have a resource problem, which means we have a delivery problem on the 5 or 6 projects in the program that I'm specifically responsible for managing. You can start looking at that, and then you can drill down into the specific resources. You can pull up a heat map. Again, I can go down to the role, and because I'm really focused on roles, not every hour everybody's working. And then I can say, well, it looks like, Todd is overbooked. Let's look at his availability. And now we can look at which programs he's working on, which projects and which activities he's working on. That's pulling away from his overall availability. It's making him negatively available. And I can see the demand curve and the expenses over time. So it really helps us do a lot of our resource planning that we have today. But what if you're in a world where you have a lot of agile projects? Well, that's where DevOps really comes into play. And so if you're doing a lot of agile projects, what you can do is you can have your DevOps teams work in DevOps as they do today, and you can start to integrate that data in with your project management information. What we can do is we can build out roadmaps. Again, this is another function that's available in the project suite, and we can start to insert projects into these roadmaps. This top project, the CRM project, is actually a DevOps project, if you can see on the right. It's a CRM opportunity lead management update. What we can do is we can go in and start looking at, well, I want to add some features. Maybe I've got some features, or I've got an epic, or I've got a couple sprints. I can pull those over and put them in my visual timeline here. And I can add specific epics or sprints in here. And then I can put them as it relates to the projects I have, the business side projects. So I can see the development work and all the business work that's going on across this application development program. So roadmaps are a really great way to use it because they'll integrate data between your DevOps system. Additionally, if you're trying to do a lot of detailed reporting across this information, you can start to use additional reporting tools. We mentioned the importance of SQL Server. You can actually start to pull detailed SQL reports. This is an example here of a SQL report on a program. And you can see here, this is the software benchmarking program. We see who the program manager is and the program owner. We can see the dates for the program, how long it's going to be, how far along it is. We can have program level indicators. And then we can look at the milestones that will go across the program. They're either at a program or a project level. So we really have the delineation between a project and a program here. Then we can look at any program level risks, program level issues, and all the interrelated projects within them and how they're doing. This is a great use case for using that SQL Azure or SQL Data Warehouse to do this kind of reporting. And finally, a lot of people want to do different kinds of reports. That's where Power BI is a really useful tool set. Maybe you want to have a dependencies report that shows you projects within a program that have relationships, really important. So you could actually go and select the specific program. Pick a couple programs we have here, and you will see the dependent project, the successor project, the dependency date, and then is there a variance here? Is it red, yellow, green? So now we're looking across projects into the dependencies between our different projects all in one place. We can get reports because we can structure our projects with those relationships in mind. And finally, we're finding a lot of people are starting to use the Power Platform. Power Platform is a really great development platform for bringing data together. And in a program management context, what we can do is we can develop program level entities here. So you'll see we have 4 active programs in our enterprise. We've got the transformation program, and now we've got data about that program. We've got the state of the program, the priority, the business unit it's supporting, what type of a program is it, what are our program goals, what is the program start and finish date, a description and a business case for the program, but we can also use this to aggregate our financials. So while each project has a spend, at a program level, we've got a budget of $22 million. We're going to see $45 million in revenue recognition. We're going to have a solid ROI behind that, how much remaining budget we have based on what's spent from our ERP system. And then we can have more detailed financials here in terms of what the budgets on the projects, the actuals, the ROI on different projects we have. We can do program level status reporting. Again, we can capture it here and report on it, use some of the reporting tools. We can then see the interrelated projects within that program. They may be coming from Project Online, Project for the Web, different technologies. You can even have Azure DevOps projects here as well if you wanted to do that. And because we've got all this program information, we can again do reporting. But what we're really finding is a lot of people want to start to use teams as kind of their unified user interface. So what you could do is you could have a team here, And this team is specifically for the transformation program. And then what we can do is we can embed our reports and dashboards in this. So management doesn't actually have to wait for a report. They could actually come directly in here. And now they see dashboard that goes across all their programs in one place. If they wanted to click into that, they can click that and they can see the programs that have projects that are in the red today or the overall red programs. Or again, they can just click on one program and start to see the breakup of how are the projects within the program doing. We can start looking at the different projects uniquely here and start to see plan versus actual cost and see which ones are causing the cost overruns, which ones aren't. We can also, if we have a development aspect, we can actually integrate our DevOps reporting here too. So if we want to look at things like cycle times or work items or value streams, we can click on that, show me all the new work items, show me all the new work items that may be assigned to Josh. Now I can see exactly what's going on with all of the development activities that are in a program. We can get additional program reports. These again are Power BI, all coming through Teams on a specific program we have. So if we wanted to say, okay, on the modernization program, cost per project, active risks and issues, and again, drill into this data as we need it. A risks report, an issues report, and have an overall program schedule for the specific program we're talking about, where we can go and select the program. Again, digital transformation. We will have a listing of all the projects within the program right here. And finally, if we're looking for that intake, we showed a little bit about the reporting. Wouldn't it be great to have an integrated report around that? So we can see all of the requests that are coming in within the program. We can even delineate the dates, look at ones farther out or sooner. We can look at ones that are in the pipeline versus on hold versus new, where we're actually starting the work, which is active versus completed. Or ones that are from a certain department. Show me all the stuff from IT or from a certain project sponsor. And you'll see we have tabs for in-flight projects, so the ones that have converted over for a certain business unit that are managed by a certain person. And finally, the timelines. Show me the timelines on all the projects that are projected right now. So using Teams and Power BI, we can integrate this data together and provide integrated dashboards without having to do a lot of detailed systems integration. It's really a very useful tool set, and most people are moving to using Teams and Power BI anyway. So hopefully we gave you some examples there within the demonstration of ways you could use the technology. Obviously, it's going to vary based off the type of programs, the type of information, the stakeholders you have, the tracking and reporting tools you want to use. There's a lot of variables there. What we wanted to do now, before we finish up, is walk you through a quick case study. So we worked with Crown Plaza. It was about 4 years ago. Their program was a $200 million multi-year program. There were over 40 projects involved in that program across 4 different organizational pillars with over 100 team members across the core and extended teams. And their real mission and goal was to rebrand Crown Plaza into a first-class hotel brand. That involved a lot of different work, a lot of people, a lot of money, and a lot of projects. And from a technology perspective, what they ended up using is Microsoft PPM or project and Hammerhead solutions like we showed you to do a couple of things. First is to enable increased collaboration for the team members, having a central repository for all the data, having a clear articulation for the change, and having a consistent process in the tool that people would follow to plan, manage, and deliver work and report on results. It really gave them insight into the program data. It enabled the parent company, IHG, to refine their strategies over time because they could look at exactly where they are and they could move things around and move investments and invest a little more in a certain project or a little less, or throw more resources at one or less at another. And importantly, the VP of the PMO, it really freed him up from the day-to-day nuts and bolts to really focus on getting more value from the program. Not worried about project execution, more worried about program strategy and delivery. And there were really different components that were built into that. Everything from capturing the case for change from an executive summary, the dependencies, the deliverables, the impact, the detailed plans, the key milestones at a program and a project level, the tasks and activities, having detailed work plans and timelines, who was responsible, and having clear accountability. Risk and issue management is always huge across a program. The ability to track, manage, and mitigate risks and issues and have escalation plans as needed. And the ability to be flexible and change. As the strategy was changing, they saw new opportunities, they could shift their investments around because everything was in one place and tracked in one place, have central budget and timelines, and finally, the ability to communicate. When things got done successfully, communicate the wins, communicate some of the challenges to executives that needed solutions. update the teams doing the work so they knew their input and status into the overall delivery, and being able to escalate issues and deliverables. So the solution really was part of this, was a combination of Microsoft Project and some of the Hammerhead reporting solutions we showed, really enabling collaboration, insight, and visibility across the entire program that it was. So, some of the value of thinking about integrating your data or automating your data on a program really are on the screen right now. First is really having that transparency and be able to access information on the status and health of the program and getting that out of project managers' heads and Excel and on their desktop into a central system for management. If you're investing this much time and money, you really should have a system to do it. We find a lot of organizations use this to drive accountability. They'll stand up, a PPM system just for the program, make it successful, and then roll it out to other parts of the organization because it really is an organization in and of itself. You want to be able to measure consistent data. Even if you have people measuring progress in different tools, you want to know percent complete, tasks, activities, progress, workload, resources, costs, all in one system so that you can roll that up and report off it. So you have consistency and you can importantly forecast. You can look forward and say, well, over the next 6 months, here's our investments. If something changes, we need to modify the budget or the resources, we can move that stuff around. It doesn't take 6 months to reforecast 6 months of work. It's also going to see a cost savings. Most organizations have this very manual or they're using multiple systems today. It takes a lot of time and it also costs a lot of money to do that manual work. You lose productivity time when people aren't delivering on the tasks they should be. They're more focused on reporting and aggregating information. So it's both a time and a cost savings. It's also going to help you mitigate risk. And you can actually see what the top risks and issues are across the program. Executives can sleep well at night, understanding they have a good understanding of it, even if there are risks, that they are being actively identified and mitigated. And finally, it's going to help you deliver and monitor the commitments of the program. So today, we really wanted to go through the structure of programs, how they're different from projects, and then show you how some of the technology, along with a good program structure and leadership, can help you achieve some program level goals. How can PROJILITY help? Well, if you're thinking about, which of these tools are the right ones for the job? Is it Project Online, Project for the Web, Azure DevOps? How do these things work together? Talk to us. Tell us a little more about your goals and your strategies for your program. We'll make some recommendations based on what we've seen with other clients like Crown Plaza and IHG. We can also help you with the planning of the technology, the implementation of the tools, the integration into your environment, as well as training and onboarding of it. Really important that you get the tools done right so you don't have to make that another project. Something that you can outsource and have someone do for you. It's a strategic project against your program, and it's an investment. Also, we can help you with adoption. Probably the most important part of these systems is getting people to use them consistently. Once you have the system in place, it's about constant communication, doing brown bags, having open sessions with your leadership, and also with the team members to get feedback, and always adapting that throughout the life cycle to make sure you're focused on the program mission. So we can help in these areas. Additionally, as Annie mentioned in the beginning, we do have some value-added connectors that may help. We have a connector between project and teams that can provide better visibility of the data that's in your programs and projects in Microsoft Teams. We have both a BI, Project Power BI, as well as a data warehouse that's in SQL Server to help you provide scalable reporting options at a program level and a portfolio level. And finally, to educate your teams on good practice use of the tools, we do have an e-learning platform where people can subscribe, go in, and it really takes them through an online course with a certificate at the end that shows them how to use the tool based on good practices. So everybody's speaking the same language. So if you do have any interest in any of these, you can reach out to us, info@PROJILITY.com, send an email to the follow-up, or hit our website at PROJILITY.com. So with that, we're going to open the floor to questions. Open Annie, see if anybody has anything coming into the queue.
Yes, Rob, we do have a few questions. What is the difference between Power Platform and Power Apps?
Good question. So Power Platform is the overriding group of applications Microsoft provides that includes Power Apps, Power Automate, which is the workflow and automation tool, and Power BI. Power App is just a specific part of the Power Platform. It's really designed for building applications for specific processes.
Here's another question, Rob. In the demo, the way to group projects to programs is by using the POL enterprise field?
Correct. That's one way to do it. So you can use an enterprise field called programs and use that to aggregate your projects and then use that as a measure in your reports to roll that up. We have a lot of clients that actually create a unique entity called a program, and then they have program level metrics like a red, yellow, green while you're aggregating the information down from the project. So you have different options there.
Here's another one. To track dependencies among projects, are you using master plans?
So there's different strategies on that. What most organizations do is they have individual schedules that have interdependencies between them, and they're stored in the online environment. So the dependencies are going to stick when changes happen. It's also going to alert people on different projects that changes are happening. Master plans can add a little risk because you're putting everything into one integrated plan, an integrated schedule, but they're also useful when you're trying to roll that information up. So we tend to do individual schedules with linkages and then roll it up to an integrated master when you need to have that level of reporting. So it's kind of a strategy, a little of both.
Looks like the last question here. How can I get a PPM connector?
You can reach out to us, send us an email after this, and we'll talk a little bit more about your needs and then make some recommendations on how the connector could work in your environment.
Thanks to everyone that joined our session today. Please do reach out if we can assist with any of your project, program, or portfolio management related efforts. Have a great day. Thanks again.